Good afternoon, everybody. It's Monday, the 18th of May. Welcome to another issue of ICB TV. I hope you're all feeling perfectly fit, happy, and mentally okay, and everything's going well for you. And I say that because today my guest is Simone Gilbert, who is the ICB's Health and Wellness Advisor. Hello, Simone.
Hi, Gary. How are you?
Well, I'm good, thank you. I wouldn't necessarily want to sit on the couch with anybody, but you know, I think I'm pretty okay. I'm carrying on. So yeah, it's very prominent at the moment to talk about health and wellness, and I see this week is obviously Mental Health Week.
Yes.
And the Duke has been back on television again with his football mates, telling everybody how they can be fit and healthy, and we've got to man up and talk about our problems. My adage has always been a problem shared is a problem doubled, but are you going to tell us it's different? Have we got to talk things out through more often? Where do you come from? Well, first of all, tell us a little bit about you, because I know you are membership director of the, what is it, the Mental Health, sorry, the Health Coach Association.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you. Yes, Gary. Simone Gilbert. Clearly, I'm not from around here. So originally, I'm from Melbourne, Australia. I've been in England for 5 years, and I hold many roles, many hats. So yes, I am the director, one of the directors, the membership director of the UK Health Coaches Association. I'm a health coach. And actually, I'm a health and confidence coach. I'm an entrepreneur. I have my own business, and I'm also a wife and mum. So like most, I'm juggling multiple roles. The UK Health Coaches Association you just mentioned is relatively speaking quite new, because health coaches in the UK and Ireland are relatively speaking quite new as well. And we represent the modality of health coaching, both in the UK and Ireland, and looking for increased visibility, credibility, and going really well, doing really well. I think probably more and more you'll all understand the power of working with health coaches, and where we as an association are here to help all and any who need support.
And I see from your conference last year, I was looking that you want health coaches to be a part of staff in certain organisations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we as an association, again, envisage health coaches being integrated into all sorts of what is currently known as mainstream. So we hope to be brought into GP practices, and certainly into the workplaces, into schools, because of the way that we work and the focus that we have, and that is all about empowerment and behavioural change, rather than traditionally saying, you know, this is what is wrong with you and this is what you must do. What we do is embrace a different process, and help people understand what power they have over their own health, and then support behavioural change to make those changes a reality. So yes, we want to be in all sectors of the community, understanding the power that we have.
So is this an extension of HR, or do you think HR is something completely different?
I think it's not really a function of HR. This is more a function of health and well-being. So, and not saying that HR is not, because, and in truth, in the corporate world, I think the lines of the roles and responsibilities have become quite blurred. So it just depends on what organisation you're in as to what the truth of your role actually is these days. But certainly the health coaching is all about health and well-being. So it's more an extension of the medical fraternity. Yeah. So we work conventionally we work with people suffering with chronic diseases. So we hear a lot about obesity and diabetes and diabetes. So the two combined. Chronic conditions also include things like arthritis, osteoporosis, endometriosis, all of the osises, which is acute inflammation. So anything chronic is where we help. So the medical fraternity is much more focused on critical. So if you have an accident obviously they're great at stitching people up and replacing things and repairing where it needs, whereas what we are doing is focusing on the chronic healthcare. And it's our belief, and in fact a lot of GPs admit freely now, that chronic healthcare is not something that they've really had much support or training in. So, and that's the arm that we're looking to support the community with. So all the things that we hear about, the major problems, health and well-being, are diet and lifestyle related. That's where we come into it. That's what we can help with.
Right, so that's why you're not bouncing around in a green leotard then. You're not trying to get us to bend over.
Gracious, no. No. Although
so you're the persuasive end rather than the shaming end then, by the sound.
No shaming, absolutely, never ever. No judgment, no, absolutely. So yes, on a more serious note, no, we are all about understanding and finding truth and honour and dignity and love. Realistically, it starts with understanding and honouring our own love and our truth, and moving from there, oddly enough. So I know that might sound a little bit woo-woo to many, but it's about acceptance of what is, and then you can create something different.
So how close are you to the tree huggers then? You know, the go and talk.
Trees. I hug trees.
That mental stability, that's what you're talking about?
Tree huggers, I'm not sure which category or which camp they come into, but I'm for one, I fully advocate hugging trees. On a serious note, it's a really, really phenomenal way of grounding. So when you are really stressed, freaking out, so we're all at home at the moment, obviously, most of us, and it can be a little overwhelming for a lot of people. One of the ways that I encourage people to break that moment, break that mold, is literally get outside and get into nature. Take your shoes off, walk on the grass. So literally there's a transfer of ions. So it literally is grounding. It helps your body deal better with the stress. If you would like to extend that and go and hug a tree, I say go for it. I'm all for it. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Am I allowed to admit I remember Richard Gere doing this in Pretty Woman, or does that make me...
I love that movie too, so you can.
That's good. So you're talking about, you've done an article for us about lockdown and how to cope with lockdown. It's getting to some people now. 8 weeks with the family, for some people, it's a bit more than they'd anticipated.
It's like purgatory. Yeah.
So how do we cope? Have you got any quick-fire answers or any tried and tested things that we can do for this?
Yes, absolutely. So looking at the article that I sent, it's recently been posted, I think, in the last day or two. One of the very, very easy things that people can go to is the basis of my program, actually, my own program, and that's SHINE. And SHINE stands for sleep, hydration, I matter, that's self-care, nutrition, and exercise. So mental health is absolutely and intrinsically linked with physical health. And there is this saying in my world that everything starts in the gut. So I'm also functionally trained. So that's where we look at the body and find out what's going on and what the symptoms actually mean. And generally it starts to some sort of impairment in the gut. And it's now known that we have a second brain, oddly enough, as it sounds, sits in our gut. So we must fortify our gut to make sure that our mental and our physical health are as positive as possible. So going back to the SHINE program, sleep, hydration, I matter, nutrition, and exercise. Now there's no coincidence that I made sleep and hydration the first two points in my program. The easiest way to break stress are those two things, sleep and hydration. Often people who are really super stressed are also really super tired. So have a nap. And sleep also encompasses rest. So taking 5 or 10 minutes away from a stressful situation is a fabulous idea to just, again, snap that moment, move away from it, literally, physically, if you can. So yes, sleep, hydration, drink some water. I noticed you were just having a glass of water. Most of us, no guilt. Most of us are actually dehydrated most of the time. Most of us don't drink near as enough water, and water or dehydration contributes to mental impairment. So foggy brain, we talk about foggy brain. Easiest way to get rid of hot foggy brain is to just drink more water. Start the day with a big glass with some lemon in it, and because overnight we don't drink, and we humans, we need a lot of water, and we need it on a regular basis. So if we don't drink water for a period of time, we are naturally going to be dehydrated. So most of us wake dehydrated. So the best thing to do to start the day is have a big glass of water, and it starts you in a rehydrated state, and then sip all day. That's the first two things.
I mean, the sleep is an interesting one, because I remember my doctor saying to me a long time when I felt I was getting a bit older, and I always felt tired after lunch. And he said, well, have a sleep. I said, well, I can't do that. He said, why? He said, go and have a nap. You know, there's nothing wrong with 5 minutes nap. But I'm also a boss. And if I see my staff all falling asleep for 10 minutes during the day, I'm not going to be very happy. But is it a normal thing to do? I know that people like Google have these tubes that people go and sit in and fall asleep for 10 minutes or something or other. Is it really that?
There are lots of things to say about feeling tired after a meal. For me, that indicates something else, and it's something to do with your gastric juices, believe it or not. So when we don't have enough gastric juice, so we don't have a high enough acid or enough acid, our body has to work really, really hard to digest the food, and we go to sleep. And it also could mean that what we're actually eating is inducing a calming. So carbohydrates calm us down. They go up and then down as far as blood sugar. So they can be a sleepy type effect on our body. But yes, there's nothing wrong with a nap, or go for a walk. Fresh air is the same. So if we spin it around and do the fresh air thing for 10 minutes as well, for those who, you mentioned the tree huggers, for those who are comfortable with yoga or meditation, meditation is a fantastic way of resting your body. So 10 minutes meditation is like half to 3/4 of an hour sleep. So there's lots of different alternatives when it comes to getting through that sleepy zone. But if you can manage to have a snooze, absolutely. If not, there are other things you can do.
So I'm not only a boss, I'm a man. So I'm getting hit with a broadside there. You know, I mean, how do you persuade men that for 50 odd years or something or other have believed that you're a wimp if you want to do this sort of thing? How do you persuade them to meditate or to sit with their legs crossed on the floor or something?
Absolutely. Look, and change is one of those things that we humans tend to resist. Change generally is uncomfortable, and that doesn't matter whether you're old, using old, young, female, male. We are change resistant by and large. So in terms of helping people understand the power of different decisions, that's the process. Rather than convincing, it's understanding the power of the decisions that we make on a daily basis, and embracing. So embracing how it makes you feel. So if I suggested, for instance, that someone who hadn't meditated or hadn't tried yoga, meditation is simply calming and listening to your breath. So people think that you have to sit on the floor with your legs crossed and have your hands in a funny way and have music going. You don't have to do any of that. It's simply stopping. It's pressing pause, as I call it, and just listening to your breath. Close your eyes if you want. Have music if you want. Use essential oils if you want. But beyond that, it's simply listening to your breath. And that process, again, helps the body calm and be still. And it's in the stillness that we heal, and all sorts of revelations happen. So as far as convincing, that would be more a process of stepping through. So if I was with a client who was resistant to the whole notion of embracing mindful meditation or breathing, I would simply step through a breathing exercise, which I'm happy to do if you would like.
Well, it sounds a bit as if I'm looking for a free consultation here, doesn't it?
No, not at all. Look, one of the things One of the things about breaking stress, and you were talking about how to move beyond the stressful moments at home, because we are all feeling it. We are all feeling like we're ready to climb the walls at different times of the day. So I mentioned sleep and hydration and getting outside. So there are quite a few little things that you can do, and breath is one thing that you can come back to any time of the day or night. So, and that is simply using your nose to breathe. You breathe in for 4 counts, you hold for 5, and you exhale for 6. It's that simple. And if you'd like to try it, I'm happy to try it with you. So in through the nose for 4 counts. In, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, and exhale through the nose, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, and exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now for some, that's meditation. And it's as simple as just stopping and saying, how am I? Am I okay? And the breath is a really good signature of how we're feeling. So when we're stressed, we breathe way up high and we puff, because the stress response in our body originates from when we're being chased by tigers. So the stress response is fight or flight. And it doesn't matter whether we've lost the keys, late for a meeting, or we're being chased by a tiger. The stress response is the same. So if we can reverse that and essentially be saying, it's okay, it's okay. The breath says it's okay. So when we're conscious of our breath, we take deeper breaths and we calm it down. So the 4, 5, 6 nose breathing literally dampens down the stress response, because when we are in a panic, we mouth breathe. When we're in a panic, when we're being chased by a tiger, we mouth breathe. When we're not so stressed and we're more relaxed, we nose breathe. So when you nose breathe, you literally turn off the stress and calm the stress response in your body. How's that sound for a future tool?
No, it's good. I was actually doing it whilst you were talking. I was going to go anyway. So
great, fantastic.
Good.
And that's something, Garry, you can go to anytime. Anytime. When you're stressed in the car, it's about pressing pause and going, okay, hold on, just breathe. And that's often, you said earlier, how would I encourage someone who isn't a meditator, who doesn't use meditation, to embrace this? It starts with just breath, and it is simply just breathe. Just breathe.
So what about someone, I always think, I don't actually know I'm stressed. I don't feel stressed. I just feel normal to me. But I think other people around me might gather something's not quite going to plan. But so how do I do that if I don't even know I'm stressed? Do I just presume?
Interesting. If you don't know you're stressed, I guess it's going to be a process of, dare I say it, awakening or an awareness thing. So if someone has the courage around you to say, Garry, are you okay? You're seeming a bit stressed, and you go, no, I'm not stressed. Maybe that's an indicator. But maybe at the same time, if someone does ask you, are you stressed? And you think, well, I don't think so, but maybe I am. Maybe my actions, my words, my attitude, maybe they are indicating that my body is stressed. And maybe that's just a chance for one of those press pause moments. So it's a matter of coming back to yourself. And so this is where I started way up front about my approach with health coaching. It's coming and being reconnected with yourself, because we're so fast in this world. We run. We're always on the go. We've always got a long list of things to do, and we always just keep doing. Whereas what I'm encouraging people is to take moments and check in and say, how am I? How am I?
So when does stress become a mental health problem? What's the tipping point?
Okay, so that's a really, really interesting thing. I think
one and the same way, or just different levels of it, or what?
I think not something that I'd ever actually considered. But stress is a form of mental ill health, and I'm not saying to the extreme that we all immediately picture when I say that. But it's an imbalance. Stress is an imbalance. So at what point it becomes a real problem for someone is very, very individual. So we all have our stress ceilings. What one person can cope with in life would tip someone else way over the edge, and others might soar through. So stress and the effects of stress on a person depends a lot on every individual, from their physical health. So those who are physically fitter and are less prone to these chronic diseases are shown to deal with stress a little bit better, because their body literally processes the world slightly easier. But as far as what's the tipping point, that's a very, very individual thing, very individual.
So you as a professional, when would you say that somebody needed to relax or somebody needed
Help.
proper help?
Yeah, fair enough. That's again something, that's an interesting prospect. For some, so one of the things that we promise as health coaches is to call on other professionals if we need. If we feel that someone else needs the support of another professional, we commit to calling those people in or referring. So if I felt that someone needed some support other than what I could give, I am the first to say, how about we talk about, and would you consider? But it may be counselling. It might be, have you considered walking every day? So it's an interesting thing about dealing with stress, and we are conditioned in society to naturally think that medication is the answer. Whereas what I'm finding, what I see anecdotally and also with my own experience, is stress doesn't necessarily require medication. It is a diet and lifestyle option. Where someone needs a little bit more help, I would be encouraging the diet and lifestyle options as much as possible. So those who are stressed do better with a little bit of exercise and less carbohydrates and less fast food and more sleep and more water, maybe a little bit of magnesium. So have a magnesium bath. So there's a whole gamut, a whole range of tools.
A magnesium what? Magnesium bath?
Bath or magnesium tablets. If you don't have a bath, but yes, Magnesium's a great anti-stressor. So there's a story about magnesium that not many of us know, and that is again that most of us are magnesium deficient because magnesium comes from fruit and vegetables in the soil. So with modern farming mechanisms and processes, the magnesium that's normally or used to be in the soil is being turned over a lot faster. It's being depleted. In fact, our soil is depleted of nutrients. So most of our fruit and vegetables are actually now far lower in nutrients or nutritional value than they were 100 years ago. So this is why the age of supplementation has come into its own. We literally occasionally need supplements. They are supplemental to our diet and lifestyle, our diet in this instance, and magnesium's a fabulous one. So magnesium for migraines, headaches, stress, sleep, constipation, dare I say, all sorts of things that comes into its own. So, and where I'm dealing with someone who is stressed and getting to the end of their capacity to deal with it, that's one of the things that I would be considering, as well as all of these other diet and lifestyle things. Roundabout sort of way. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So what's the difference? I mean, you come from Australia. You did the same sort of thing in Australia?
Yes.
What's the difference between the Australian person and the English person? Because we all think we're very anally retentive, they call it, but, you know, we're a bit uptight as Brits. Is it right?
Yes, I'm not really in a position to agree or disagree, am I? I could get, my screen might go black.
Not at all.
I think probably overall there is a slightly greater approach and appreciation of diet and lifestyle and the benefits thereof in Australia, but only slightly. I think the world people the world over underestimate the power of their daily decisions about what they do with their body, what they put in their mouth, how much they do these basic things. And the basic things are the sleep, hydration, self-care, nutrition and exercise. It's that simple. It comes down to those things. And I think realistically, the world over, most people just need a little bit of help and support to focus on those things.
And we've just had a message in here from Lucy Brown saying she's listening while doing the weekly shop.
Fantastic.
Keeping my algae rage at bay. Thank you very much. Well done, Lucy. Okay.
Fantastic.
Each to their own, I suppose.
That's good. Good. Let me know if you need any tips for the shopping list.
So how do we cope with mangry?
How do we cope with?
Have you come across mangry? This is, men get hungry and therefore get irritable when they get hungry. It seems to be a need to feed.
Oh, I have to say, I am exactly the same. It's not just a male thing, but we'll deal with the men. Again, it's a very individual thing. So if someone came to me and they were saying that they get really hungry and they get a bit annoyed at the same time, there are a few things that I would be considering and I would be asking about. A, what are you eating? So for a start, if we focus on the content of our meals, if there are a lot of carbohydrates in those meals, other than making you sleepy, so because carbohydrates, okay, let's backtrack. Carbohydrates are a group of food that your body converts to sugar. So we talk about don't eat as much sugar. Sugar is something that our body needs, but in its natural form. And when we talk about nutrition, we have to consider what the body does with the food, not what it's called. So when we look at the group of carbohydrates, our body turns those things, those potatoes, rice, pasta, bread, all of those carbohydrates into sugar. So if we have a meal that's heavy on sugar, our blood sugars go spiked high because we have to process it a lot faster, and they naturally crash because our blood sugars come down. So if there's a person eating a lot of carbohydrates and relatively speaking less fruit and vegetables, they are more likely to get this hangry thing happening because their blood sugars spike and crash. So what I would consider first of all is, what are you eating? What does your normal meal contain? And I would be focused there on encouraging more fruit and vegetables, leaner proteins, better proteins, whether they're animal based, it's up to the individual, and less carbohydrates. And if you're going to have a carbohydrate, make sure the quality is high. So nothing white or beige, ditch white or beige, because they are spike. They spike the bloods. So go for sweet potato for a carbohydrate, for instance, if you want potato just occasionally, but they literally are a sugar in your body. So the first thing to consider is what you're actually eating. And if you increase your choice of fruit and vegetables, grains, you're probably going to find that initially, certainly you may get hungry, but eat more. Or snack on nuts. I've got the nuts and the fruit behind me. If you get hungry, and if you are not sated when you finish your meal, eat more. But you cannot eat too many fruits, vegetables, salads, whatever they're going to be in. You can't eat too many. And that in itself is likely to help this hangry thing happening. And then snack. If you are a snacker and it works for you, snack. And snacks can be something like dark chocolate, because you have to have chocolate, especially at the moment. Nuts, even a tea, a tea. I use tea. They're all on my desk. They're all around me all the time. But yes, hangry is a thing. It's absolutely a thing. Does that help?
So, yeah. So that sounds very much like an Atkins diet, but that's supposedly not very good for the muscle mass. That disappears, does it? If you don't get. Is that because there's not enough fruit and veg in a straightforward Atkins diet?
That's an interesting thing. So I am of the opinion and training philosophy that no one diet fits Every person. No one diet works. And in fact, I don't use the word diet other than diet and lifestyle related. Diet is what you put in your mouth. Diet is not something you use to lose weight. So in my world, with my approach, if you want to lose weight, we have a whole lot of other things to talk about, and it's nothing to do with the weight. If you want to lose, if your body is carrying extra weight, it's not about the weight, and it may not be about what you eat. It might be a whole lot of other things. Do you understand? We talked about stress. Stressed people tend to carry more weight, generally speaking, or else they tend to be way under because their metabolism goes crazy. So weight is an interesting concept. Diet, I wouldn't ever. I encourage everybody that I work with and come into contact to never use it in terms of weight loss. Just give up. So Atkins diet is great for some. It's terrible for others. So what we look to do is make sure that what you're eating and how you're living suits you, because we are all an individual and a singular case study. So what I eat on a daily basis works for me, but it may not work for someone else. They might get hangry, they might get sleepy. It's a purely individual thing. So Atkins diet is generally about fruit, vegetables, and a bit of protein. That's a great basis. It's a great basis, but I don't advocate weighing things. I don't advocate counting blueberries or whatever they do. I'm not into that. I don't do it. So, but part of my study, I've studied over 100 diets. So I know the diets. So if someone comes to me and says I'm keto or Atkins or paleo or paleolithic or vegetarian, or I'm okay with understanding what they're doing. What we need to do is unwrap that and figure out why they're doing it and what their results are and what's actually going to work for them.
How does family come into this?
How
does family come into this? Because I met recently with some of my relatives at a funeral, unfortunately, not related, but and we all look the same. We've all got the same hairline. We've also got the same teeth. We've all got the same belly, if I can call it that. It's almost we're doomed. How do you break that cycle?
Genetics. Okay, so this is something that's a really, really interesting part of the health and well-being line. We are taught that genetics are our curse, generally. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
So my mother and my grandmother had, so I am bound to. So the thing about genetics that we understand now, there is a whole world called nutrigenomics. And this is the understanding that our genes are not fixed and they can actually be switched on or switched off by our diet and lifestyle. So here again is the power of diet and lifestyle. So just because you are genetically predisposed to diabetes, for instance, or cardiovascular disease or anything, does not mean to say that you are doomed. So there are many, many studies. You can look into this for yourself. So there's a study into cardiovascular disease using identical twins in America. In fact, many, many. And it's shown time and time and time again that the genetic pool that we come into this world with can be modified. Again, that flies in the face of everything that we're told. We're told that we get our genes and nothing changes. I'm here to say in my research, in my education, my studies, that's not true. And we are not bound by whatever our genes would naturally say. So when someone says, you know, my mother has cardiovascular disease and I have too. What we actually find is that it's the diet and lifestyle that we inherit that switches on the genes that pushes us towards or down that path. So again, as I said, I did mention right up front that in all the work and all the study that I've done, a lot of what we're told, a lot of what we've been fed to and led to believe, it's simply not true. And we're finding every day there are more discoveries about the power, again, to diet and lifestyle to unravel these chronic diseases, chronic conditions.
And my wife and I have got a couple of friends who have seriously taken to exercise. A bit older than us, they look ill. They really don't look happy with their size and shape.
Okay.
You know, and it's difficult to look at them and think, well, yeah, you're probably healthy.
Okay.
They look really, really, you know, emaciated almost.
Yeah, so exercise is a funny thing. There is a massive component of connection with self in all that we do in kind of my approach, my world. And exercise is one of the keys in my Shine program. Exercise is the last component. And one of the main things that I say about exercise, Garry, is do what you love. And when you don't love it, don't do it. So this is about understanding why you are doing what you're doing and that it still brings you joy. So if it gets to the stage where exercise becomes a compunction, it becomes something that if you don't do, there is an element of guilt around, for instance, that is when I go, okay, we've got a little bit of an issue. Let's talk about this. Let's unwrap this. Let's unravel what is going on. What is driving this behavior? So exercise is absolutely crucial for health and well-being. We all know it. You must be living under a mushroom to understand, to not understand that exercise is crucial for longevity, health, well-being, mental clarity, all of the things that we love, respect, and need. We can do it wrong. We can do too much of it, just like we can do too little. So people who are looking unwell because they over-exercise potentially are unwell, just as when you don't exercise. So, and again, when it comes to exercise, we've got to look at why you're doing it, when, how, and most importantly, do what you love. My bottom line. So find what you love. If you like bouncing on a trampoline, do it. If you like going for walks, fantastic. Maybe just go for a bit further. If you love running, run. But as I say so many times, if you own a gym membership and you simply don't go, figure out why. And if you really don't want to go, don't go. Cancel your membership.
About 80% of our members, ICB members, are women. Most of them are mums, bringing up kids. It's been a particularly difficult time for them at the moment because they have got so many different calls on there every day time.
Yes.
You know, they've suddenly got 2 or 3 children running around that need schooling.
Yes.
Or if not, you're a bad mum.
Yeah.
They've got a husband quite often, or you know, they've got a wife if they're a husband, and they are suddenly under their feet a little bit more than they were, and they're not used to living in that close proximity. I mean, what on earth do they do to balance everything?
Absolutely. I'm hand on heart. I feel for them, and I know the pain. I do find myself occasionally saying, "Get out, get out! I've got something to do." So it might be I'm preparing dinner, but I've got such a small window because of everything else that I'm trying to do. I get out of my kitchen. Pardon me. At other times when I'm working, I literally do have to say, I'm working, you know, mum's time. Boundaries are really important. And this is not just an imposition of boundaries, it's an understanding of boundaries. So this is literally having a family meeting, that mummy does do work and mummy needs some quiet time. Like you have time out, mum needs some time out and some work time. So whatever the conversation needs to be, it has to be had with the family. So, and this is about mutual respect and the understanding of boundaries, because each of those individuals in the family has to have the boundaries, and about working a routine and a schedule that works for everybody. Sadly, and I hear you, sadly, in my experience, the women tend to take the bulk of the responsibilities. They tend to juggle the most responsibilities, and it can be really difficult at the moment for finding those boundaries that actually work for them. I'm hearing more and more that more women are compromising even more and perhaps not getting as much done. I heard yesterday from someone that she's juggling even more and she feels like she's doing nothing well. Okay, so that's one of those moments where we go, hold up. press pause and just go, what really matters here? And we come back to self. So coming back and thinking, okay, I'm doing the best I can do. And that's got to be good enough for those moments that you feel like everything's just going completely pear-shaped. Giving yourself a moment to go, hold on, I'm doing my best, and it has to be enough. And nothing else matters. If dinner's late, if the children are not educated beyond reading a book and doing a puzzle, if the work is delayed a little bit, all of these things are okay, especially at the moment. So I think probably self-care comes into its own now, and not being harsh and judgmental. So I talk a lot about language in my program, and that is the self-care and the I matter. I actually wrote something today about the power of words that we use on a regular basis. And I talk, actually at the conference, I mentioned should. This is a moment, this is a time in history where there are a lot of shoulds happening, and I do encourage people to not should on their life. Instead, I encourage people to use could. So mums are using should. Oh God, I should be doing this, and I should, and the kids should be having, and I should be doing, and the work should. I just go woo up with the shoulds. Stop with the shoulds. Could. Give could a try. So use the power of could, which gives you the option of making a decision, and it brings the power back to you. Whereas should is disempowering. Someone else says, and I must. We ditch that. So, and try is one of those midway words. If you're trying to do something, I invite people to stop and say, okay, let's get real about this. Am I or am I not? I'm trying to do something. Okay, in terms of I'm trying to get my work done, that's entirely different. But if I'll give that a try, will you or won't you? Now is the time again to make those lines in the sand and decide I will or I won't. At the moment, I can't, so I won't. So a little bit more decisive about some of the things that we're taking on. Does that work for me or does it not? Another nice thing is yet. I haven't done it or I didn't do it. Yet. Use a little word. So what I'm talking about is bolstering yourself and being your own best friend rather than just dumping on yourself and being judgmental and bringing yourself down with the language that you're using on a daily basis. Flip it. Flip it. Little things like the power of could. It's an unbelievable life changer, world changer, game changer. And try yet. And when you get to the I am statements, another thing is I am. I invite you to pause when you say I am. How are you? Is a major question right now. I am. What are you saying next? Because one of the things that I find regularly is what you focus on, what you repeat, is what is almost self-fulfilling. So you can say, you know what, I am feeling really stressed or really overwhelmed. What I am going to do about it is, again, bring the power back. If you're handing the power off with your language, I invite you, switch it a little bit and bring it back. Acknowledge what's going on. I'm feeling overwhelmed. What I can do right now is, and some people suggest 10 o'clock, what I can go and do is go and have a glass of wine. No. What I'm talking about is the power of language. So yes, I'm hearing that women in particular are really overwhelmed, really stressed at the moment, more so than normal. This is about just pausing, pressing pause, give yourself a moment. If you have to say, whoa, mum needs 5 minutes, go outside, take time out. It's not just for the little kids, it's for adults as well. So right now, it's do what you have to do to keep your equilibrium.
One of the things that we're always trying to do at our conference, and obviously you have spoken at our conferences, you've already said last year, and who knows whether we'll get one this year or not. We don't know. We're still got fingers crossed, November, but who knows? Who knows? It's empowering our members to believe in themselves. Now, there was an article, I was just trying to find it actually while we were talking. Somebody was saying that the biggest problem is when you say bookkeeper, too many people say, I'm just a bookkeeper. Or somebody says to us, you're just a bookkeeper. Now, we've come up with the phrase, I'm not just a bookkeeper, I'm an ICB bookkeeper. That means something special. And a lot of people have tagged on to this, but I find it's usually the bookkeeper that says that, actually, not the business person, because they appreciate it. So how do you get them out of that?
Oh, absolutely. That's another one of those words. Thank you for picking that up. It's actually one of the words that I use, just. I'm just Ooh. Okay, I invite you to never use that again. Never just, even in that phrase. Forgive me for stepping over that. I would say instead, I am the bookkeeper. I am your bookkeeper. I am a bookkeeper. Life with the tax department is impossible without me. I would bring that back and be real about what you do, what service you fulfill for people who need your service. So for someone who cannot submit their tax return, you are not just a bookkeeper. You are the bookkeeper. You are the saviour. So I would encourage you, never use just. So I speak with people who are just a mother.
Yeah,
just
yeah.
a wife.
But that's dead simple, isn't it? Yeah.
It's not sensible at all. We get rid of just. Why demean yourself? And this is back to language. Don't demean yourself. And frankly, I think if you step out the front door, some days the world's going to drag you down anyway. So don't join in. Pity party's way out of line. So I would get rid of just. Never use it again. Same as should. They just... Absolutely, yeah. In that context, they need to go. So bookkeepers are vital, fundamental, key. And as an entrepreneur, I can't do without them.
Good. Couple of emails coming in. Karen says you can actually buy a spray, a magnesium spray that you spray onto your skin. Yes. And it's so thin. Does that sort of thing work?
For some, yes. For some, I've actually found that they can get a bit itchy. Depends on what's in them. Right. Depends on the content. So some sprays are great, some sprays are not so good. So there's a whole world now embracing this holistic approach, which is my approach. So those commercial producers who've gone, oh, this is a good idea, we'll make this magnesium spray, but they put in a whole lot of like citric acid and a whole lot of other things, preservatives, and they're not so good. But the pure ones, absolutely, absolutely.
All right. June sent a couple in saying, you seem to be a very strong advocate of mind over matter. Well, I think we've got that one. But she says, have people's problems changed over the years that you've been involved in this?
I think probably from my perspective, the role of stress, unfortunately, has become more and more prevalent in people's world and illness. And I keep going back to this disconnected. So I speak with a lot of people. I work with a lot of people who are just about do, being busy. How are you? Busy, busy, busy. And I'm like, okay, well, one's enough for me, but you go right ahead and have 3 of them. There is almost glorification in being busy and going here and doing that and having this and traveling there. And I see that more and more as being a problem, not something to be glorified. And the more we do, the less we be. So this comes back to this disconnected, this state of disconnection. Probably from my perspective, people are less and less wired into themselves. They're less and less connected with the things that really matter. So dare I say it, the diet and lifestyle and the connection, the community. I think social media it's been fantastic in one sense, but it's awful for connection. So we are most connected, more connected than ever before, but a lot of people are lonely. And I think probably stress and loneliness is far more prevalent these days. And I would literally say, ditch the social media and make time with friends, make coffee appointments with people that you know and love. Even if at the moment, obviously, they're with Zoom, but get face to face with people a lot more. So, and that helps with stress, because one of the things that we can do to ease these problems, you said a problem shared is a problem doubled. In most instances, it's actually the reverse. Could work the other way.
Yeah.
But we are beings of community, and this stress and loneliness is it's being amplified by the things that we take for granted, the travel and the social media and the technology. So I think probably coming back into ourselves I actually think we're moving towards that. I think we're moving, it's gone full circle, and I think we're actually moving towards community, and things will change, and we'll wind back from this hugely stressed way of living and the disconnected way of living. They would be the two things that I've seen grow, amplified.
So you're not one of these people who believe that 5G is beaming it into our head somewhere or another?
5G is definitely being used on a very serious note. Depends on who's making it. It's a real problem. 5G is a real problem. So I don't know if you know the analogy of the frog in the water. So if you put a frog into hot water, it hops out. Whereas if you put a frog into cold water and heat it, by the time it's realized it's too hot, it's too late. So 5G, okay, over the years, we have had an upscaling technology over the last few decades. And with every upscaling of Wi-Fi level, we have had a pandemic of sorts. So I think probably 5G in and of itself is something to be wary of. I do believe that there are solutions being rolled out, and there are forms of this higher technology that are better than others. But yeah, I for one, so EMF problems are a thing in my world. So people who have headaches they can't explain, sleeplessness, chronic type conditions. I have had some people in my world that wiring their computer and getting off the Wi-Fi, turning away from those technologies has actually improved their health. So again, it's horses for courses, but unfortunately, I think for some, the 5G is a real problem.
Right. Clive, I don't know if it's Blatherwick or Blatherwick. Hi, Clive.
Hi.
Bit of a pun here. Food for thought, but great information. So thank you for that. That's great. Men and women seem to have different stresses. So do you find that it works better when you're taking a class, let's say, where it's an individual, or is it a mixed class, or is it all men or all women? Is there a better way to approach what you do?
That's a really interesting question. I love working with groups of people, and I don't actually mind if it's one or the other, so single, sex or mixed. When it comes to it, the stressors in our life might be a little bit different. They might be tweaked at the top end. When it comes to it, the solutions for stress can be brought back to a formula of sorts for each and every individual. So each component, each of the foundations of the SHINE program I mentioned, applies to everybody. Everybody needs sleep, and they need 8 to 9 hours. Everybody needs to be hydrated. Everybody needs to take good care of themselves, rest, be kind to themselves, be connected. Everybody needs to eat for health, not for convenience, and everybody needs to exercise. So there's the foundation and the formula. Beyond that, everybody is an individual, and we can drill down. So short answer, I don't mind, and my presentation would be tailored to the group.
You alluded earlier on to almost to cavemen, and cave women, and our bodies are still do. It is very weird, isn't it, that when you look at what we do, you could look back and say, actually, yeah, that's the modern day form of that. I mean, most men worry about, they used to call it putting food on the table.
Absolutely.
It's a question of, I've got my family to feed, and we all want families, but and a lot of people are actually put off having families. Men are put off having families because of that commitment. They've got somebody else to look after. Women, on the other hand, are there to make sure that we are pushed out occasionally to go and kill something to bring it back to eat. You know, and it's really weird, isn't it? That even after, well, thousands of years, we're still basically the same people.
Absolutely, and I think probably at times we've fought for generations to change those fundamentals now. And this is not necessarily, you know, I'm not going to be talking about women's lib or any of those things. Fundamentally, I agree with you, and I guess it's probably going to be quite an individual perspective. But fundamentally, I do agree with you. There is a biological driver in each sex, and for women mostly it's about community and the next generation and keeping people safe, which is why we're wired so differently, which is why our conversations are differently, our eyes are literally different, we see things differently, literally, because we have to. And we had to back then. So I agree with you. And it's interesting, part of the connection process that I work with just about everybody is understanding who we truly are. And once we get that, we might need to change it a little bit, but once we get it and we can honor it somehow, life tends to feel a little less stressed. It tends to feel a little less heavy. It's only when you're really clashing. So for some women, for instance, I've worked with really super high-powered women who have this inner drive to be more gentle and, you know, kinder and more community focused and more family focused. And that clash is enough to cause them real physiological stress. Likewise, men who've been in a different situation want to do the hunting and gathering and, you know, out and taking care of the family, and they've been potentially disempowered for whatever reason. So, you know, everybody's an individual, as I said, but it's about understanding who we are and what causes our own stress, our stress for ourselves.
I was watching an interesting TED lecture yesterday. I forgot what it was, talking about men and women and how they just don't understand each other, basically. But he was saying that when a man is first courting with a woman and he takes her out to dinner, she has his undivided attention. But once they're married, he's always looking around. And he says that goes back to the bit where you had to be looking because either there was somebody there trying to kill you or somebody you wanted to go and kill to eat, you know, and it's weird. And it was just the way he was explaining it. It was so funny. And both men and women in the audience were sort of nodding vigorously because they agreed with what he was saying.
Oh, really? Okay.
It wasn't taken wrongly at all. He was just saying, but you know, this is what it's like. So
I think probably it's about acceptance. We are different, and neither's right or wrong, and we both, by and large, we need each other. So, you know, and that's about this connection thing in the community. So what women can do really well, generally men can't, and what men can do really well, generally women can't. And I think probably part of this moving into the future is being okay with that. You know, I'm okay with that, and I'm not, you know, obviously everyone has their own path, but I think probably this just gentle acceptance of who we are as individuals, and then sharing those conversations. A nice thing to have those conversations within the family where there is this tussle is when I feel. When you do say, I feel. So this is not your behavior this is not you are wrong. This is just a natural and a nice way of saying, when you do say, I feel. And hopefully that can be a little bit of a platform for an open and honest conversation, and probably a revelation. In some instances is, you know, because we do speak different languages at times, I can say wholeheartedly that my husband was, really? Why? And okay, so there you go, there's a conversation. So when I feel, it's a really nice way of trying to understand one another better.
I wish that was a revelation, but anyway, never mind. So we're coming to. I mean, we've had an hour. This has been fantastic speaking to you. But what would you say should be our plan now for keeping our head down, getting on with it, and slowly coming back out? Because bookkeepers now have got a lot of calls on their time. But when we get out of this, there will be a huge mess that's been created. We're going to be called upon even more to try and sort out what goes on. I mean, what have you got a list of things which people should be doing on a daily basis? Is it back to your what you call it, shine? Is that what we're going to finish with?
Nice and easy. When all else fails, nice and easy. The one thing I would say right up front that jumped into my head is don't use just. Ditch just. Never use just again. When the doors open and we're all allowed out, the world is going to need your help more than ever before. And celebrate that. I would be, probably from a business perspective, if I may, I'd be letting people know that you're here. And now's a great time to be advertising your services and letting people know that you're here, you're ready, you're armed, and your job it's unchanged. It is going to be busier, so now's a great time to get things in order so that you're not a part of the onslaught when the doors are open. So preparation is probably a nice thing that you could be highlighting to your audiences. As far as self-care, I go back to my Shine program. It's nice and easy. Remember, take good care of you. It's about putting this oxygen mask on first, and then that's just pouring from an empty cup, and all of those analogies, they're all true. We have to take care of ourselves. We have to check in with ourselves. We have to say, how am I? And does this work for me? Sometimes we have to do things that don't work. That's fine, and we have to do it anyway. But mostly we have this opportunity to say, is this working for me? How's it going? How am I? So check in with ourselves regularly. But shine, sleep, hydration, I matter. So self-care and rest, nutrition and exercise. So there's a whole lot of information in each of those pillars that I'm happy to share. But if nothing else, write it down. I've got a chart that I can share with you and map out what works. Bit of planning is probably going to be worthwhile. So you can use the diary to say, I am going to get up half an hour earlier and go and do a walk in the morning. The weather's beautiful, so make the most of that. Lay out your clothes the night before, fill up your water bottle, and just get moving. It's going to help with the stress process. It's going to help with that inundation. Just a really simple way of building your resistance and your resilience. And just plan. Use those 5 areas and plan what you're going to do in each of them that works for you.
Great. Well, for many years of doing this job and talking to women, one of the big things that they wanted was more time with their family.
Yeah.
They've sort of got that now. Now they maybe they wish for it, but nonetheless.
Careful what you wish for.
I'd like more time for myself. I'd like more time to relax. And ICB did try to organise a sort of a weekend away, because a lot of people said, that's what I'd like to get away. When it came down to it, though, they didn't actually want to be away from the family. So there's a double call on a person's time, isn't there, really? You know, the idea of being away with other ladies who have massages, relaxation, nice things to eat, etc., sounds wonderful, but it's not on their list of priorities.
No.
So how do you get them to do that without charging them an arm and a leg and taking them to a posh hotel? How do we as ICB do that first?
So it's a really interesting thing when giving people the chance to actually step away and do the thing that they talk about, i.e. time away from the family. So something that I would be, again, in my sessions, I ask lots of questions and we delve and peel back layers. And in truth, people like to be with their family. In truth, women especially, men as well, we like to be a family unit and we like doing activities together. Generally, there's that connection. So yes, there are those who take the opportunity of stepping away and going to these retreats and going to resorts and self-improvement, self-development. For those, it works. For those that it doesn't, self-care and nurturing of self does not have to take hours. It doesn't have to be any more than a quiet cup of tea. So what I focus on, what I encourage everybody to do is take time every day just for you. Even if for the mums, you have to say, it's mum time, give me 5. If you start doing it, initially people go, what? Don't be ridiculous. What are you talking about? But it's this boundary thing. It's this boundaries and being allowed to go, you know what, I need my 5 minutes. I need my time out. And once you start asking it and later demanding it, but once you ask it, people will probably go, okay, why didn't you ask sooner? So I would really encourage people to take that time. So, and if it means, for instance, so one of the things that I really love to do is get up a little bit earlier in the morning before the house is up and busy and noise, and it's so quiet and still, make my cup of tea and sit outside and just listen to the birds. And it's a form of therapy every single day. I absolutely love it. And I treasure it as my time. And during the day, if I feel the same and it's just like, woo, you just do the same. Take the 5 minutes, 10 minutes. If you love yoga and you haven't gone to a yoga class, use your diary, make a commitment, book your ticket and go. So these little things, it can be an hour here or half an hour there. So self-care is about doing the things you love. It's that simple. If you love doing X and you haven't, now's the time to at least look at what those things are and schedule them. Bring them back into your schedule. So it doesn't have to be a weekend away. It's about remembering what you love and doing it. It's that simple.
Brilliant. Great. So everybody listening, can I just tell you what we're doing for the next couple of days here, just so that you are aware. Tomorrow, I've got Kevin coming along from Free Agent. Most of you will know Kevin. He did a brilliant virtual presentation up in Inverness when we did the Inspire Tour last year. I think he must have had a bit of a foresight of what was going to come, I think, because he did that as a presentation. So he's going to come into it. He's talking about open banking. It's very big stuff at the moment, particularly now when people are stuck at home or stuck in their office, not stuck in their office, and they need to get the banking done. And then on Wednesday, we've got not just one, not two, but three people to come and talk to us about money laundering and what you should and shouldn't be doing with your practices. Now, this has been extremely popular with the branches. I know it sounds like a rather tough subject, but it's not. So we've got Steve coming along, as you all know, Steve Hardwick. But this time he's bringing along his wife, Jane, because Jane is our head of investigations, and he's going to tell you what she's been doing during lockdown and how some of you are slipping up, and she's having to ring you up and say, oh, you haven't done that, and so just keeps you out of trouble. So she's going. And then we've got Mike Jardine coming on. Now, Mike is one of our inspectors, and he's going to talk to you about the sort of things which you talk to him about when he comes and does an inspection. And he's also going to go through the list of excuses that we've all heard before and won't cut any ice with him, but also talk to you about the way he approaches an inspection and how he tries to put you at ease, and then what sort of discussion he has and what he's trying to find out about you and your practice when he comes for an inspection. Now, we haven't done any inspections for a while. We are now just starting again, because the OPBAS, our dear old friends, professional body, they expect us to do that. So that's Tuesday, Kevin from Free Agent, and Wednesday, Steve, Jane, and Mike, the triple whammy, as they say. So we'll keep you involved with the rest. And Simone, thank you very much for that. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I can see we've had a few questions here, so we'll pass those on. But I hope everybody else did. It's something I should be taking a bit more care of, as you probably guessed from all the questions I asked. But apparently I can't just blame all my aunties and uncles because we all look the same. But never mind. Thank you for coming on. I look forward to working with you again as we move forward. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your lockdown.
Thank you, Gary. It's been great. Thank you very much for having me here today. And if anyone has any questions, or if you want any specifics covered, I'd be absolutely delighted to help you.
Yeah, we'll be looking at that. We'll take the feedback and then we'll come back to you with any of the points. Brilliant.
Thanks, Gary. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.